It's November, and it's time to be thankful. Thankful for friends, family, and most of all, food. And what better way to celebrate this gluttonous holiday than to review a game centered around food? And it's called McKids. An NES game centered around the fictional world of the corporate fast food giant known as McDonald's. So let's dive into this high sodium review. This is McKids, a game made for the NES based on the fast food juggernaut McDonald's. McKids is a side-scrolling platformer developed and published by Virgin Interactive and released on February 1992, while the European release was published in 1993 by Ocean Software. Apparently, during a picnic, McDonald Land's very own kleptomaniac, the Hamburglar, stole Ronald McDonald's magic bag of hallucinogenic drugs. And our heroes, Mick and Mac, or better known as the McKids, are tasked with tracking down the Hamburglar by traversing McDonald Land, completing puzzles, and meeting with some other McDonald's mascots, like Birdie and that big purple fuck Grimace. Other ports of MC Kids was also developed, including ones for the Atari ST, Commodore 64, Amiga, MS-DOS, and the Game Boy. The MS-DOS and the Game Boy ports being called McDonald's Land. Outside of Europe though, the game was rethemed as a Cool Spot game known as Spot, the Cool Adventure. But how many programmers does it take to develop a game based on a high fructose fast food franchise? That number is 4. Yeah. Just 4 programmers in an 8-month time span created McKids. Darren Bartlett was art and level design. Greg Is Tavares and Dan Chang were in charge of programming, and Charles Deenan headed audio. Of course, there were other names included when it came to the other released ports. A list too long that I'd rather not ever dick with at this time. That's everything we need to know about development and storyline. So put on your bibs, kids, because we're gonna pop this son of a bitch in and play it. Where do I begin with McKids? It's painfully obvious that this game was made for children as a quick cash grab by using the familiar golden arches. Everything is so upbeat and even has a cartoon look and feel. Knowing what I'm in store for, which is nothing short of a scavenger hunt across a short level, makes me less enthused about what lies ahead in terms of gameplay. Can you tell it was made by 4 dudes in 8 months? I really don't know. But if lack of polish says anything about this game's initial appearance, then yes. Yes, you can definitely tell. Unlike many platformers, McKids doesn't require you to go across the entire level from beginning to end to complete it. Instead, your mission is to jump around the level and search for these red M blocks, or as Ronald McDonald calls them, puzzle cards. These give you access to the next board in the game. The character of the particular board will tell you how many cards you need to grab, and you have to go to each level to find them. Sometimes it's as easy as jumping up on a spring block, and other times it's as difficult as trying to find out where the hell the card is, and when you find it, you need to find some sort of elaborate way to get to it. You don't have a time clock, so taking your time to figure out a puzzle is not an issue. What is an issue is that you're given 4 hearts for health, except you always start with only 3 of them filled. What the fuck is with that? Or how about the fact that when you complete a level, your health isn't filled back up? Isn't Ronald in dire need of his magic bag? Why is he being so stingy? Speaking of Ronald's help, or lack thereof, this game's premise makes no sense. Ronald tells you that he's spotted the Hamburglar at Birdie's, but before he can show you where Birdie lives, you must go out and find those damn puzzle cards. How about you just fucking help me out and tell me where her house is? Why do I have to go on some sort of hunt for cards? Do you want my help, Ronald? You scary looking fucker? Colorful yet empty is a way I can only describe the levels. Unfortunately, with all the colors and vibrant shades of green and blue, the level seems just too empty for such an expansive color palette. Despite that, they're very well designed. You can jump from platform to platform and not worry about having too many poorly placed pitfalls or enemies to blindside you. You may come across these unique blocks where if you run across them at high speed, they'll flip you onto the bottom of the platform, and now you're upside down. This gives the game an interesting edge, and it may require you to use this to grab a puzzle card. Unfortunately, When you're upside down, the whole sky becomes a pitfall, and if you fall upwards, you're dead. I have to admit, the way levels are designed and how they make you figure out how to grab a puzzle card are at times very creative. This is McKid's strong suit. The environment of McDonald Land is very bland. You don't feel immersed or excited by anything around you. It's just too obvious that this is just a fast food game running on the back of a popular franchise name. There is a variety of enemies in the game, ranging from snails to weird creatures that borderline the oddness of Karnov. I get that this is based on a fictional world that has a magical clown who endorses food loaded with trans fats, but the enemy types are very uninspired. Dispatching them requires you to pick up a block and chuck it at them. It only takes one hit and they're done. Except it's hard to hit an enemy because the blocks tend to bounce. Oh, and no bosses. That's all. The difficulty isn't really there. It's very easy, and the only time you'll find yourself challenged is trying to find out where the hell a puzzle card is on a level. The game is fair as it doesn't give you a time limit, but some of the puzzle cards are placed in pretty ridiculous places, and even enemy spawns can fuck you over. Graphically speaking, visuals aren't very polished compared to other NES titles. They're not very sloppy or hard to figure out what you're looking at, but they don't jump out at you. Usually sprites and even the levels are composed of one or two solid colors, instead of a range of different shades that give the graphics depth. Just because you use bright colors doesn't mean it's not bland. In fact, it's probably worse when you use bright colors if you don't add shades to it. It makes those bright tones less riveting. Controls have a few issues. Though they are responsive, they're loose and sloppy. Your character slips and slides around uncontrollably, and picking up blocks at times can be a pain. Like many subpar platformers, the controls are this game's weakest area. Not much is happening with the sound effects. In fact, there seems to be a lack of sound effects during gameplay. Hopefully you're not invested on the idea of a stellar soundtrack either. You get one song that loops over and 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 over. Just pass on this game. It's mediocre at best. Though it can be creative at times, it's not good, but it's not bad. It just exists in the NES library. If you feel compelled to play this game, then do so. There's no harm in it. Just don't say you weren't given fair warning beforehand. And we're done with this review of MC Kids for the NES. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, give me a like and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.